everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another Japanese deep dive into some more modern Japanese titles and to some directors that I really wanted to explore more than just in terms of the filmography, but just on the channel as well, and go into that journey with you guys alongside. Very similar to what I've done with Kiyoshi Kurosawa films. I will be getting back into that series very soon with the Battle with Our Honor collection. I've been kind of sidetracked in various different ways and just kind of seeing how I feel. There are aspects in Hong Kong cinema that I want to explore, and there's some other aspects in Japanese cinema that I really want to explore as well, in terms of directors, in terms of certain film series, many kind of Asian-based content to get through, guys, and just kind of picking the right rhythm that I want to go dive into, essentially, and also to dive into the collection. But I've got many films that I have yet to see, so just finding the right path, the right kind of opportunity, and just kind of going with it in terms of how I feel. And I was talking about recently with something like, you know, New Love in Tokyo and some of the pink genre films, and then diving into the fun, quirky, cute kind of time travel book, you know, concept, you know, with the infinite, Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes and the River. I really wanted to explore other films in modern Japanese cinema, and one landed within the kind of the zeitgeist, within the kind of the atmosphere, essentially, with Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cloud, released in 2024 via streaming on Japanese Amazon, I believe, but now is doing the kind of the festival run and the more international release quite recently, getting a lot more buzz on Twitter and various other kind of forum sites. You know, surprisingly, I saw a tagline or a quote saying one of the best action films of the year. That was quite surprising if you know that director, if you know his style. You know, I've only seen a handful of this director's work, but action film with this director, really? That doesn't seem quite right. And it's interesting, this film's been out for a little bit of time. It really struggled to find a distributor. No one was really picking it up. I've heard about it for quite some time now, and it's surprising. It's been available on digital in various ways, and now it's only getting the kind of the more you know, international kind of film festival scene and kind of being picked up, and people are really starting to react. So it might actually get a cinema release, or it might just get a really good maybe Blu-ray or 4K release maybe down the line. But I'm glad it's getting a little bit of attention, and that kind of prompted me to do this movie for a review, and also talk about the director in future videos coming forward. Kiyoshi Kurosawa is quite an interesting director if you're familiar with his work. He's done a lot of big main kind of horror dramas, very different types of genres, but mainly sticks to in heavy character pieces. All of his films are drenched in kind of character work, and he has very unique scripts, and some work, some don't. It just depending on, you know, your taste and what you enjoy. But he is known for the horror scene. Something like Cure, for instance, which recently got a 4K release from Eureka, which is absolutely fantastic and highly recommend. I will do a video review on this some point down the line. And also known for doing Pulse, which is a really good kind of early 2000s kind of commentary about the internet. Just have that kind of umbrella release currently at the moment in terms of a brand new 4K scan. So a lot of his films is surprisingly very sporadic and very mixed. You know, some of them do have fair window editions. Rico's done one, Arrow's done another in terms of just standard Blu-ray. Now, in terms of Cloud itself, I definitely would recommend going in with the right expectations. Do not listen to the tagline saying best action film of the year. You're going to go in thinking this is a John Wick film or some sort of really cool, slick film. It is not that. This is a very surprising film that does have a bit of a genre kind of swap in it. It's a bit of a, I wouldn't say a twist or a kind of a shock. It's something that he has done before within his kind of filmography, but it comes in very late towards the end of the film. And, you know, you do have some action-based moments, which I'll get into in a minute. So do not think this is an action film. It is definitely not. This is definitely Kiyoshi Kurosawa's style of filmmaking, and I believe his late style of filmmaking, from what I know with some other films he's been involved with. This starts off very traditional in terms of his signature style. You've got tension, you've got a slow burn, you've got atmosphere building up, and you've got really kind of creepy kind of moments or ideas being planted, very clever foreshadowing, and he builds up this kind of, you know, tension, the ideas as the film goes along. It's ones that you need to kind of stick with, pay attention, again, invest in the characters, invest in the story, and see where the kind of the unraveling of information goes in terms of the narrative. And sometimes it turns into a full-blown horror, sometimes it turns into a very much a psychological thriller, or sometimes like this, a genre swaps into kind of an action film or something else completely. So it definitely is on brand in terms of the director, in terms of his style. This one's played a little differently compared to some of his other films that I know of. Impressive in creating that tension, creating that kind of dread, and really building up some of the kind of the more kind of socially awkward moments, or just some of the tension-filled kind of ideas in terms of being alone and just kind of, you know, playing with scoring and playing with editing and just really kind of building up. And he's definitely still got it. He definitely still has me on edge at times. I think the results in this one is definitely very mixed, and depending on your taste and depending on how familiar you are with the director and what you're expecting going in, I think will determine your enjoyment. I think Cloud is actually very, very good. I really enjoyed my time with it. I understand what the film's trying to go for. Definitely is falling into some of his ideas, very similar to Pulse, funny enough, I would say, in terms of that film being about the early 2000s and the dawn of kind of the internet, and how we just kind of are shadows of our kind of former selves, and the world's basically getting screwed up, essentially. And this is a commentary on some similar ideas 24, 25 years later, essentially, which is pretty interesting. And the storyline for this film basically follows a main character, which is kind of like Raton, I think his name is, or in terms of his social kind of, you know, seller name. And basically this our main character is a reseller. He is someone who buys a lot of materials and stocks, whether it's games or handbags or kind of, you know, kind of machinery components, things like that. He buys bulk stock at really cheap prices, or tries to cash in very quickly and tries to make money, tries to kind of upsell, and basically he's a scalper, essentially. You know, same with the PS5 and many of these other limited edition sets and things like that. People that buy bulk editions, whether it's consoles, whether it's kind of like, you know, Blu-ray 4K sets, whatever you want to call it, special editions, and all, you know, concert tickets, things like that, and basically try and up the price, triple or, you know, double or triple the price, try and make money or try and make profit essentially off it. And this is following a character which is essentially very, you know, very young. He's someone who's very determined, someone who's got a very clear, sharp focus. You know, he knows that he can do this very well. He's got his setup, he's got his little infantry in terms of his shelving units kind of thing. Guy's computer, and basically takes professional photos, and he just sits and waits. He watches by his laptop, his computer, and basically waits for these things to sell and go one by one, sold out, to make that money, to kind of increase his kind of revenue and go for that. And these inspiring in terms of a new generation, modern generation, in terms of doing something more than the regular life. He's got an ordinary job in terms of factory work. He's been offered by his boss, basically become like a senior kind of like team leader, you know, and it's basically not for him, even though it's a pay rise. Like, I just don't want to do that. It's a commentary on one front about the kind of the modern age in terms of making money, in terms of doing more than just the traditional normal job. And if you have the right mindset, if you have the right skill set, despite what you're doing, I mean, it's very harmless. It's fucking annoying, and everyone's been through that kind of scalper kind of pricing, and it's people buying things left, right, and center. That happened with the PS5, and it's really bad. It's not good, and obviously sometimes they end up losing a lot of money in the process because they leave it for too long or doesn't sell quickly enough, essentially. So we've all been there in terms of a kind of a scalper situation, or we've ended up paying double the money essentially for something that we potentially wanted initially the first time around, something that Jingle the Way explored in terms of, you know, the Turbo Man doll, in terms of it selling out very quickly, and obviously they get the scalper prices, that's kind of scammy deals, and essentially this is what our main character does, and he's very professional about it, and he decides to go full in on this adventure and basically quit his job, you know, move apartment to a much bigger place in terms of a kind of a lake house, really expensive as well in terms of that kind of rent, and just going full force into this and kind of turning his back on a lot of people and various kind of opportunities, and going against the social norms. Even his boss at the factory place thinking, why are you doing this? You know, you're young, yeah, you're ambitious, but don't do this, you know, come back, you know, just do this job, do this promotion. It's like, no, I'm done, I'm walking away, and even tells his girlfriend to quit her job. And this character is willing to take that risk, take that gamble, and willing to go for a better life. And as mentioned, this is kind of like the zeitgeist at the moment within kind of a modern setting within Japan, definitely within Europe as well, in terms of everyone wanted to try and make more money and not do the traditional job. There's always kind of, side deals in terms of OnlyFans or, YouTube or streaming or doing side gigs kind of thing. There's always sorts of weird kind of skew kind of jobs which people want to make as much money as they can and not do the traditional job so they can help it. Even movie reviewing is, a very kind of demanding job, or joining a company and making content, it's a commentary on that kind of thing forefront straight away. And this character is decided to go for it. He had a mentor, someone who he knew back in kind of college or university, which is also trying to do his thing as well. He's got investing in an app, and basically it's interesting because things start to change, things start to get a bit strange. There is some breaking of windows, and there's some people are following him. There's kind of weird kind of, I wouldn't say barbed wire, but like some kind of really strong kind of metal knocking off his bike, and there's a rat being left outside of his kind of home. And as mentioned, he decides to go to the lake house with his partner and basically go full force on this. And it's interesting kind of, to see why Japan falls on the idea of a reseller, and other people that have tried and kind of failed in terms of that. We see that within some of the people that have been screwed over by him, essentially buy his stock at a certain price, try to sell it on themselves. So there's constant this reshuffling of kind of, stock and demand kind of thing. And, obviously they've been fakes, or they've been broken or not working. And this is demonstrated within the coffee making machine, which is kind of is faulty. So a lot of the stuff he is getting is not of good quality or is bad value essentially, but it doesn't matter because he's buying bulk of it, selling it on for a profitable price, and then moving on to the next thing essentially. And we see various different people that have been affected by this, and this is where the genre shift kind of really changed, and we get some of the horror aspects, and it goes into more of a strange kind of action film, almost like the Twitter or Facebook or kind of the Reddit kind of forums coming to life. This idea of saying your threats, I want to kill this person screwed me over, or I'll find you now. It's this idea of like people have no filter online and basically saying what they want to say. And it isn't until this collection of men essentially that have been screwed over by this person in one way, shape or form, motivations are very scarce, they all decide to come together and basically go to him, kidnap him, and try and basically say, we're going to kill you, we're going to broadcast it on a streaming site, dark website. And petty, very kind of pathetic kind of, really kind of terrible kind of motivations to go after someone. And even our main character saying, am I such a bad person? Have I done so wrong? He's just a reseller. And yes, we can get annoyed. Yes, it's not a good kind of, profession to really get into, but, when everyone else is down their luck, when everyone else is being screwed over, or in some way, shape or form, whether it's directly or indirectly, or really strange kind of, motivations. And that's a bit of a deliberate kind of commentary and a bit of a mock on terms of how social media is kind of played and used within today. And I think it's very apparent, especially within some of the later reveals within that kind of third act. I think it's quite interesting, and it gets a lot more actiony, in terms of more of a thriller aspect towards it, which I'll save some of the stuff for the actual film itself. But it definitely has some gunplay. Is it the best kind of gunplay ever? Not really. Is it kind of just a bit awkward, a bit kind of, janky? Yes, it is. It's very deliberately kind of not kind of Hollywood, or it's not trying to be impressive. It's not a slick one. It's just real guns being used in essentially the situation and people getting hurt or killed. It's very quick. It's very kind of non-glossy kind of thing, or glorified. It's just people using weapons. And now, is it my favorite Kiyoshi Kurosawa film? Not really. I think it's a very, very good film. I do enjoy my time with it. I thought the characters were quite interesting. I thought even for a slow burn film, it's a 2-hour movie, I think it was quite engaging, quite interesting. I think the concept's quite fascinating, and the attention to detail in terms of the kind of the coldness of the locations and the tension building, and has some of the horror elements that he's known for doing, and having a kind of a risky kind of third act kind of genre swap, I think is quite interesting. Not all the results pay off. I think there could have been a bit more, another draft of the kind of the script. I think there could have been a little bit more tightening, or a bit more kind of fleshing out in some of the characters, or just a bit more to kind of make me a bit more invested in terms of where the film goes. I think it builds and builds and builds, and it's really interesting. And you think it's going to be some sort of like, Stranger's home invasion film, and then turns into something else. It's like, okay. And I think the ideas are good. I think it's well used, in terms of what it's trying to go for. But I do think it could have been a little bit better, could have been a bit stronger, or it goes on for a little bit too long, potentially, in terms of the third act. I don't think the action or gunplay side of it is particularly that strong. For me, honest, I actually preferred the first half of the film in terms of the slow build and the kind of the day-to-day routine of this kind of character. It's definitely worth checking out for sure. And he's done another film within the same year as mentioned called Chime, which is more of a traditional horror film, which I will be exploring very soon to see what's all about in terms of his 2024 work. That's now getting released in 2025. I will be doing a bit of a dive back into his kind of filmography, whether it's kind of the cinema aspects he's done, whether it's more of his traditional feature films. I will see what access I have available to and do videos where I feel appropriate within the channel and kind of explore more of this director and more of his work and see if I can get more of an understanding of this director's kind of style as I go along and see if there's any kind of big winners in there alongside something like Cure, for instance, or Pulse. That's been my thoughts and opinions on Cloud. What are your thoughts, guys? Please comment down below. What is your favorite Kiyoshi Kurosawa's filmography? What is your favorite? What is your highly recommended film of his kind of filmography that you absolutely recommend to go and check out? Please comment down below. It's been time, guys, on Amphlett Reviews. Signing out.